At least 11 people have been killed and 10 others injured after a landslide triggered by heavy rains buried homes in Mania, a rural commune about 50 kilometers from Guinea's capital Conakry. Authorities warn the death toll may rise as rescue efforts continue. I'm with my people, and we must combine our small efforts with the collective effort, our small intelligence with the collective intelligence to succeed, to find people in life. Before coming here, I prayed that we would save as many lives as possible. Rescue operations remain underway as families search for missing loved ones. Local volunteers rush in with heavy machinery and hand tools to assist. All the houses were home to about 20 families. All the houses had floors. So when we came, there was no access. We brought the shovels and sent a lot of things to save the people. The National Agency for Emergency Management confirmed the collapse followed days of intense rainfall. The disaster underscored Guinea's vulnerability to extreme weather, coming just a year after record floods devastated West Africa, killing over 1,000 people and displacing hundreds of thousands.
Iran will meet next week with Britain, France and Germany for talks on its nuclear program as the European powers warned Tehran to engage swiftly to avoid snapback sanctions. Iran's foreign ministry announced that discussions between Iran and 3 European countries will continue next Tuesday at the deputy foreign minister level following a phone call between Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi and European counterparts. French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot confirmed the talks and cautioned that Iran faced a narrowing window of time, while German Foreign Minister Johann Wadephil said his country remains committed to diplomacy, but time is very short. The venue for the diplomatic discussions, which marks the second round since the 12-day Iran-Israel conflict, has yet to be confirmed. The Islamic Republic suspended cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency in July, citing the United Nations nuclear watchdog's failure to condemn Israeli and US strikes on its nuclear facilities. The deadline for activating the snapback mechanism ends in October, though European countries have set an internal target of the end of August, while also offering an extension to buy time for talks. The European trio, parties to the landmark 2015 Iran nuclear deal, have threatened to reimpose sweeping United Nations sanctions lifted under the 2015 agreement unless Iran agrees to curb its uranium enrichment and restore cooperation with IAEA inspectors. As the deadline looms, EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaya Kallas says Iran's cooperation with the US and the IAEA is essential for progress. Iran and the European trio, known as the E3, met for discussions at the Iranian consulate in Istanbul in late July. Tehran previously says it would leave the nuclear non-proliferation treaty if the E3 activates the snapback mechanism. The 2015 nuclear deal was aimed at preventing Iran from developing an atomic bomb, an ambition it has consistently denied.
The U.S. is preparing military attacks on Mexican cartels, according to a report. The report from Ken Klippenstein says the Trump administration has directed the military to prepare for lethal strikes against cartels. The attacks will reportedly be ready by mid-September. One of the military sources quoted says the military action could come without the approval of the Mexican government.
And if that cooperation gets lost, the question is it worth it to have done it? Is targeting one high-value target, or even a few, or even 10, or many high-value targets, is that worth the loss of Mexican cooperation on a whole plethora of other issues?
It's unclear what the military attacks would look like and whether there would be actual U.S. military boots on the ground in Mexican territory. A separate report from the New York Times reveals the CIA has increased reconnaissance operations over Mexico with drones.
Any country would find it inappropriate if foreign soldiers without permission were being actively deployed on their territory. It says a whole bunch of things. There are, however, models for success, ways in which this can be done legally without violating Mexican sovereignty.
Finding and taking down Mexican cartels has been a priority for President Trump. Finding specific cartel leaders can be tough, but it can also be done, especially if they're still actively involved.
It took a long time to find bin Laden because bin Laden wasn't talking to anybody. And he wasn't of operational significance. He was a strategic visionary leader. He was putting out the occasional letter, but basically he was completely cut off using a one-man courier. Even Chapo Guzman had people near him who were using phones, who could be targeted by U.S. signal intelligence, be it law enforcement or military. And so he could be found once his network, once there was a focus on targeting his network. And we could see this for a lot of high-value targets.
It's unclear exactly what the U.S. strategy is at this point when it comes to military action against cartels, but Dr. Jones says the strategy is the most important part.
I have no doubt that if the United States were to send in, say, special operations raids of some kind, I have no doubt that anywhere they go, they will defeat Mexican cartels. It's also completely irrelevant to the broader strategic context. You can win every battle and still lose a war. We saw that in Vietnam.
The United States is sending 3 naval destroyers to Venezuela, while the country's despotic leader, Nicolas Maduro, dispatches millions of militia members throughout his country. Washington says it wants to stop the flow of drugs from Venezuela into the U.S. Caracas says it will defend its seas, skies, and lands to prevent any empire from touching it. The U.S.-Venezuela relationship officially went sour in 2019 when the two countries cut off bilateral diplomatic ties during President Donald Trump's first term. The U.S. has not recognized Maduro's government as legitimate since then, and in January, accused the Venezuelan president of being a narco-terrorist and drug trafficker with ties to the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, or FARC. The militant Marxist group was actively involved in creating violence in Colombia for more than 50 years. Since then, the White House has kept the pressure up on Venezuela to do more to stop the flow of drugs, specifically fentanyl, from the South American country into the United States. The Venezuelan-based Tren de Araguas gang was designated as a foreign terrorist organization earlier this year by the U.S. State Department, and now President Trump is ordering 3 U.S. Navy warships, the USS Gravely, USS Jason Dunham, and USS Sampson, into the waters just off Venezuela's territorial water. All 3 vessels are Arleigh Burke-class destroyers. They each carry dozens of Tomahawk cruise missiles, able to hit targets on land and at sea. On the bow of each destroyer is the Mark 45 5-inch deck gun, plus several other types of machine guns adorn the ship. Now, in terms of stopping some narco boats and smaller craft that may be smuggling drugs or people, 3 U.S. guided missile destroyers is a little excessive, retired Admiral James Stavridis told the Wall Street Journal. It was, quote, overkill, But he also said it sends a clear message to Maduro: stop the drugs. So obviously we're looking at a map of Venezuela, and the coastline right here with the Caribbean is about 1,700 miles long. We don't know exactly where the 3 destroyers will be positioned, but a Tomahawk cruise missile has a published effective range of about 1,500 miles, and that's what these 3 yellow lines represent on the map, 1,500 miles. So if a destroyer was placed, just off the coast of the northern part of the shoreline, obviously 1,500 miles, that's enough to hit South Florida. So it would definitely cover the whole of Venezuela. If we had a boat in Puerto Rico, still covers the whole of Venezuela. Even if you had a boat out in the Western Atlantic, still covers the whole of Venezuela. Now, President Trump did give the military the green light to act against drug cartels. And while the cartels do use sea lanes to move a lot of their product, most of their operations are based on land. I'm not going to go into whether or not Tomahawks will be flying into Venezuela, but I will say they certainly have the range to hit anything in the country if that order is given. All of this does not mean the United States is close to launching an invasion into Venezuela, though, at least not with these resources. The 3 destroyers are powerful and capable of shore bombardment, but they don't carry any forces capable of carrying out an amphibious assault or landing, like what we would expect to see in an amphibious ready group with a Marine Expeditionary Unit, which means they don't have the ability to move large numbers of troops and equipment from ship to shore. This is not the first time the U.S. Navy was called on to help in drug interdiction, but most of the time it usually operates in a supporting role, like in early August when the Samson helped seize almost 1,300 pounds of cocaine in the Eastern Pacific. But Navy warships taking point in the fight against the cartels, that's definitely new.
It's dubbed Alligator Alcatraz, a federal facility to detain and deport migrants. But a judge now ordering it shut down over environmental concerns in the Everglades. Florida set to appeal. A new legal hurdle for the Trump administration, which has reduced illegal border crossings to record lows and is now trying to speed up deportations.
This is a mock neighborhood that ICE has set up for new recruits to come in and practice doing what they would do out in the field.
Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons showing us this facility to train 10,000 new officers.
This is the police with a warrant. Open the door.
Doing mock arrests of criminal suspects and a driving course.
ICE's new recruits take turns driving in simulated high-speed chases.
All as ICE faces escalating criticism from Democrats in sanctuary cities who refuse to cooperate with the agency.
Stop attacking our cities.
What do you say to that?
It's frustrating. We're dedicated to going out and getting those criminal aliens out of the neighborhood because time and time again, much like we saw in New Jersey, you have an individual that gets arrested twice for DUI. ICE put a detainer on him. They didn't notify us. They ignored the detainer. He goes out later, a 3rd DUI, and kills a mother and an 11-year-old child.
We asked about the call from Washington, D.C.'s mayor for ICE to stay away from schools.
Can you guarantee ICE will not be on school campuses on Monday in D.C.?
You're not going to see ICE officers doing a raid or a sweep, if you will. But our goal, one that Secretary Noem is passionate about, is finding those 300,000 undocumented children and those minors that came here to the last administration. We've seen so many cases of some of these children that we've rescued in sex trafficking rings, human trafficking rings, forced labor.
And we pressed him on the few cases where American citizens were mistakenly arrested and then released.
Do people just have to bring passports with them everywhere they go to prove their citizenship?
No, that is a training issue that we're working on.
He says violence against ICE officers has soared 1,000%, but they've still received 121,000 applications for 10,000 ICE jobs. Julia Ainsley, NBC News, Brunswick, Georgia.
Today, we are highlighting yet another major enforcement effort. This week, a first-of-its-kind immigration enforcement operation started in Florida's Panhandle, led by the Florida Highway Patrol in coordination with our federal partners, including DHS, agencies like Border Patrol, HSI, and ICE. The Panhandle Immigration Enforcement Operation is part of a comprehensive multi-agency enforcement detail targeting illegal aliens with criminal records, fugitives, and repeat immigration violators. We deployed 45 FHP troopers and 20 federal personnel across Escambia, Santa Rosa, Walton, Okaloosa, Holmes, Bay, Washington, and Jackson counties. Although the operation is still underway, nearly 200 illegal aliens have already been apprehended, with expectations that the final total will even be higher by the end of today's operations. Among those arrested, 37 illegals that had previously received final orders of removal and yet failed to appear in court. 8 illegals that had been deported and illegally re-entered the United States, one of which has been deported 4 times, just like a revolving door. These individuals will be federally charged. Troopers have encountered illegals who have fled, resisted arrest, and even physically assaulted officers, underscoring the heightened danger posed by criminal aliens. We're going to continue to face escalating attempt by criminal aliens to infiltrate our communities, posing a threat to the safety of not only our citizens, but also our many, many visitors. So this operation sends a clear and uncompromising message. We will not tolerate lawlessness in the state of Florida. We're going to continue to deploy every available resource to identify, apprehend, and remove those who seek to exploit our state and to endanger our people. While some states simply watch and wait, Florida leads. Our commitment to efficiency and accountability is why Florida continues to remain the national model. And just last week, Florida marked another milestone in partnership with ICE and the U.S. Coast Guard. We launched the first deportation flight out of Tallahassee Airport, transporting nearly 20 illegal aliens in an operation that is going to continue each and every week.
And Boston is already a target of a stepped-up federal immigration crackdown, mostly due to the mayor's outspoken stance to continue sanctuary policies, basically business as usual. Now, ICE agents, and this threat is that they would come and flood Boston with agents. Remember the cell video of a New Bedford in mid-April? It horrified a couple and the community as a man thought to be an ICE agent breaks a window to take a man into custody. Now, conservative podcast host Howie Carr, yesterday speaking to the acting ICE director, talks about ICE flooding Boston again. It's ramping up the war of words.
Are you going to surge the city of Boston and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts like the District of Columbia is being surged?
We're definitely going to, as you've heard the saying, flood the zone, especially in sanctuary jurisdictions. And obviously, Boston and Massachusetts decided to stay, that they wanted to stay sanctuary.
We know how to take care of our neighbors here in Boston without the interference, coercion, intimidation, bullying, or threats from the federal government.
Todd Lyons repeating that a sanctuary city does not mean safer streets. Mayor Wu standing by the crime stats, which are moving in the right direction right now. We are live at City Hall. Rondella Richardson, WCBB News Center.
It is going to be a big operation. And President Trump has already indicated that he wants to start by making sure that we're deporting the most dangerous first. Those criminals, murderers, rapists that are threatening safety in our communities, they're going to be the first ones on the list to go. And from there, yes, it's a commitment, but it's a commitment for our national security interests.
A flashback following the 2024 presidential election when now DHS Secretary Kristi Noem expressed the Trump administration's commitment to overhauling the nation's migrant crisis. And deportations remain a top priority, with Secretary Noem now doubling down and pushing for ICE to own and operate its own fleet of aircraft. News Nation's Allie Bradley is live. Allie, this fleet would be a massive investment for DHS.
Yeah, big ticket item here, Nicole. You're exactly right. DHS sources confirming that Secretary Kristi Noem is pushing to use billions in new funding to buy planes outright, and that would end years of relying on these charter companies. So what exactly are we talking about here? Right now, ICE actually rents between 8 and 14 planes at a time, enough to deport about 15,000 people per month. But officials say the goal is to double that number, to hit 30 to 35,000 removals a month. ICE would need about 30 planes of its own to manage that. So it's an expensive idea here. Big ticket item, as we said. Commercial airliners can cost between $80 million and $400 million. Outfitting a fleet could top $12 billion. But with President Trump's big, beautiful bill sending ICE more than $75 billion, the agency now has the money to launch an airline of its own. You compare that to the charter flights, which were costing ICE between $100,000 and $200,000 each time, according to sources. So if approved, ICE would be responsible not just for flying and staffing the planes, but also keeping them airworthy under federal aviation rules. The Trump administration has said it would deport at least 1 million illegal immigrants each year. According to data over Trump's first 6 months in office, though, ICE only deported upwards of around 150,000 people, which does include self-departures as well. Now, supporters of this plan, Nicole, say that would lead to less detention center backups. However, opposition here says it's a really costly gamble here, but either way, looks like ICE is preparing to take flight. Nicole?
All right, Allie Bradley live for us there near the border. Allie, thank you.